Jumbo, 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 jumbo karibu, everybody. Jumbo, jumbo karibu. Oh my goodness, Ryan Gogler, what happened? Ah, if I go into an action movie and my sister loves it more than me, that's a problem. If I go into an action movie and my nephew is sleeping during the movie, that's a major problem. Ryan Gogler, what happened? What happened? What happened with Wakanda Forever 2? What happened? I have to tell you all, I was bored in lots of the parts of the movies. I was restless. I was confused. I wasn't engaged. No, 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 no. I have been sitting on this for 2 days thinking to myself, what happened? Why am I feeling so downcast? Why am I feeling like something is missing? Why am I feeling like this movie is just a notch up from a Nigerian movie? Why am I feeling like this movie is like a gentrified version of movies? Why am I feeling like this is a colonized version of an African related movie? And why am I feeling like this movie is just an American ideal that is being wrapped into the culture of the Africans? Hey, don't get me wrong. The movie did a beautiful tribute to our most favorite T'Challa. King T'Challa was definitely missed. The movie was not the same without him. You could feel that the presence was missing. But they did not do a good job filling that gap. Not that that gap can be filled. That is not a gap that can be filled. But the movie overall, to me, yikes, it was predictable. I cannot believe it. So I felt like I was watching the ethnic version of Aquaman with some of the scenes. I just felt like you've thrown me into a DC universe and I was watching the ethnic version of Aquaman. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. This is not what I expected. I did not expect this. Like, I went to the theater thinking, okay, these are 3 storylines that might happen. One, I thought M'Baku was going to maybe fill in the role or fill in the space that was left by King T'Challa. Nope, that didn't happen. They basically turned him into, I don't know, maybe you don't want to say the word, but I was very disappointed with the role of M'Baku. I was so disappointed with how M'Baku was played. I was so disappointed with how M'Baku was treated. Literally, the men were placed on the sideline and made to be voiceless on the African continent. Yikes. Okay, I know this is a fiction. I know this is not reality, but this makes me uncomfortable. You are presenting a movie on the African continent about maybe a fictional African continent. But do this African continent have to have their men completely voiceless, really, or like spineless? Really? Spineless African men? what's the goal here? Like, what is the goal? What is the point of turning a movie that featured T'Challa and powerful men and women, a collaborative situation, into a movie where women basically rule the world and then fights off this enemy like there is no tomorrow? I'm not saying that women cannot rule the world, but I'm saying that we cannot keep doing this to the men, especially to Black men. We cannot keep doing this to Black men. We cannot keep pushing them on the sidelines. We cannot keep treating them like they are voiceless. They were the ones that held the world together for generations. Men held the world together for generations. Yes, before equality. They might not have been perfect, but it doesn't mean that every man was a suppressor or didn't treat women properly. So what is this whole push about just shoving men to the side? Black men already have enough on their plate to be shoved on the side like that in a fictional movie. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overreacting with this movie. Maybe I'm just overreacting, but having been born and raised on the African continent, this movie turned me off. I didn't even take the time to apply my cultural model to this movie. I didn't even bother. I was so excited in the first movie to apply my cultural model and really look at this movie and give it. I was excited about Wakanda 1. I was happy with Wakanda 1. It was culturally relevant to me. But Wakanda 2, nah, this movie is just, I don't know what this movie is. I left the movie confused. I left the movie a little bit lost. I left the movie conflicted, very, very conflicted. For 2 days, I sat and I thought, okay, maybe I was just not feeling good that day. No, for 2 days, I've been feeling the exact same way about this movie. And I'm very sorry. It's satisfactory, like my nephew said. It's satisfactory. This movie is satisfactory simply because of the tail end of the movie. The movie is satisfactory because of the tail end of the movie. When this movie ended, when the first round of credits started rolling, I started like, okay. Well, I guess we're at the end. 2 hours later. 2 hours later, I'm like, and then when the real end came around, I was like, okay, I expected that. I expected something like that had happened in the movie. That ending wasn't that surprising to me. And then T'Challa's replacement wasn't that surprising to me. I had hoped for a different ending. So those are the three things. I had hoped for somebody else, M'Baku, to be the new T'Challa. Not that T'Challa can be replaced, just the new king to have a significant role in the movie. But no, he didn't have to be king. He didn't have to be the new Black Panther, but he needed to have a significant role. He is one of the most powerful characters from part 1, for Wakanda 1. So why is it that for Wakanda 2, he's basically on the sidelines, literally in the movie, on the sidelines? Fail. There is no, like, I know every script has its rationale. I know every script has its reasons, right? And every scene can be justified, but it doesn't mean every scene is culturally relevant. Not every scene is culturally relevant. I walked away from that movie, though I saw the location of the movie, the local context of the movie was okay, it was good. They still showed me the beautiful scenery, okay. They still showed me a ton of Black people, okay. So what? They still showed me people dressed in African dressing, okay. But even the wardrobe of the main characters, nah, not exciting. For an African film in our day, not exciting. That wardrobe was way too modernized. The wardrobe was way too modernized. I don't know. That futuristic Africa that Africa, I guess, that futuristic world is just, didn't sit right with me. It just didn't sit right with me. Yeah, nah. Okay, I needed to vent. I needed to vent. I was feeling so frustrated. I needed to vent. I think overall the movie tried to do too much at once. I would have been happy to go in there and just pay tribute for maybe an hour and a half. I would have appreciated a storyline that was an hour and a half that pays tribute and establishes a new king, a new Black Panther without all the rest. I know rite of passage was a good way to get a new Black Panther, like going through that process of becoming the new Black Panther. I think for that reason, I can say that one thing I appreciated is that rite of passage that were established. In my cultural model, rite of passage is a significant element. Most cultural elements, on the cultural tree, rite of passage is not a part of it. But in my cultural tree, rite of passage is a big part of it. And I did see with the new Black Panther that they made an effort, gentrified effort though, like, I don't, using whitewash is not to offend, but I have to say it's a whitewash version of a rite of passage. Way too modernized version of a rite of passage. Like, I appreciate technology and all of that. But if you're telling me that there is another kingdom that has the same powers as Wakanda, now you want to tell me that the plant is not also in that kingdom? That plant that was recreated should be in that kingdom. Why didn't they go in search of that? Instead of creating a whole new world and starting a war, why didn't they just create the world? Instead of starting a war and all of that, why didn't they just create a war where it's more peaceful? And she goes on a trip to find, she hears of this plant in another kingdom, and she goes on a trip to find it. That would have been part of a rite of passage. I know that the universe like to fight wars and blow things up and destroy things. But haven't Africa been destroyed enough? Do we have to be destroyed again in a fictional world? Haven't Africa been colonized enough? Do we have to be colonized in a fictional world? Why didn't we use Wakanda too for good? Like, why can't we create the ideal Africa? Why can't we create the Africa before slavery and colonization? Why did we have to create an Africa where people are being destroyed, people are just constantly being attacked? Okay, fine. But haven't we heard these stories as Africans? What is it about this movie that has never happened on the African continent? Please, somebody tell me. Is there something about this movie that was like, oh, I wish Africa was like this? Nothing. Nothing. Like, I don't wish Africa was run by only women. We like men, and I like men, and I don't want any African fictional kingdom to be run by all women. I'm sorry, I just don't. Men are important to society, and I don't want them to be sidelined. Maybe all of Africa, maybe other Africans don't feel this way, but I do. I do feel this way. I do want men to be treated with respect. I do want men to be treated like in many kingdoms across Africa, they fought wars and conquered kingdoms. Women did too, but men did more. Yes, given maybe the circumstances led to that. There were so many other circumstances that led to that. But seriously, are we really going to just sideline our men? I don't appreciate that. You know that little scene that was thrown in there where the line that was said by Okoye to the general, to her husband, was used by two women. We saw that. It felt like an agenda. It felt like, oh, let's appease a group of people. Nothing wrong with appeasing a group of people in a movie and trying to be inclusive. But did you have to take a line that was used by a couple, a heterosexual couple, and give it to a non-heterosexual couple? Why didn't you just create their own scene? It almost felt like you went in there in Wakanda 1 and was like, let's backtrack. How can we make this movie the opposite of Wakanda 1? Ugh. Sheesh. Okay. Is it just me, or at the beginning of the movie, it didn't feel right? It just went boom, like this random commercials going on, and then the movie just starts. And I'm like, African storylines don't start like that. And Wakanda 1 didn't start like that. Why did they have to change that? That was one of the most intriguing parts of that movie. It made you feel right at home as soon as it started. For those of us that grew up in a village and we sat by the fireside and heard our parents tell stories, that beginning was too Disney. That beginning was like, what happened? I'm sitting there going, wait, the movie has already started? Okay. I guess we should put down the popcorn. Yeah, no. Go back to the beginning of it. Wow. Why? Why did the movie have to start like that? I personally feel like there's another way that could have been done. That could have been done. Like, if I think about growing up in a village and think about leaving a story halfway and then picking it up the next day, there was still that announcement. There was still that call to attention, call to listen, that was missing from this film. So for me, like, the beginning was cheated of something. Mongai, Ashengai, Ongyululo, oh. Then you give a brief overview and then you jump back in and continue the story. You want to build an African fictional kingdom and African fictional world? At least keep some of the things that make the African storytelling African. The oral tradition was completely missing from this movie. How do you tell a story without the African oral tradition? If you really, well, I guess you didn't want to be authentic in any way. So I think I'm being a little bit hard. I think Wakanda 1 raised my expectations so high that Wakanda 2 basically took a needle and went pew, 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 and just ooh. My dear sister, you are no waka, oh. You are no waka for me. This movie no waka for me. I don't know how when I think, but this movie no waka for me. All right. So usually when I watch African movies, I go to the Crenshaw Mall, and that's where the Magic Johnson Theater, and that's where I watch the movies, because I want to feel the room. I want the experience that, I want to experience how others are experiencing the movie. And I can definitely tell you that now the experience, granted, I was watching this movie at 8:30 in the evening, so basically 9 o'clock at night. The experience was blah. Anyway, usually one of the things that tell me that an African is on African people in the theater enjoying the movies, this snappy lot of comments they make or reactions, there was zip from the audience. And there was a good number of Black people. I know this movie was not made just for Black people. It was made for other ethnic groups. And I have to say that even though there were other ethnic groups in the room, it just felt flat. It felt like it was landing wrong. There was only one scene with an applaud where people were like, woo! I don't even remember what the scene is. That's how unimpressed and unimpacted I am by this movie. I don't even remember what scene people were excited in. The only one scene that people were, one scene that people were really, I think it was the very end. The only scene that people really got up and you could tell they were really happy throughout the movie was in the very end. There was applause in the very end. But when you watch Wakanda 1, there was multiple scenes where people were like, what? Oh, make really this snappy, this interesting, engaging comments, but that was not the case here. And then when you leave the theater, when I left the theater for Wakanda 1, you could see that people walked a bit tall. People walked tall. People talked with confidence. People talk different. Like Black people, very expressive, right? So you know when they like something or they don't. And trust me, people were walking out of the theater. I was waiting to get that feeling before going into the movies. I was there early, like went there, bought a ticket, went to dinner, and then before going back. People walking in and out of the theater, there wasn't, I don't know. It was just a different vibe. I'm not saying that the movie wasn't good. Please don't get me wrong. I'm just narrating, I'm just analyzing the movie based on my expectations of the movie. This movie left me empty. This movie left me disappointed, not wanting for more, not wanting to go back and see it. It left me disappointed. Like it was satisfactory because of the ending of the movie, but it wasn't impactful. So the role of Namo, I almost feel like it didn't do justice to Namo. Like I feel like Namo, just like Black Panther was created, Namo could have been a standalone character. Like Namo and the story of that universe could have been a standalone story. I don't think that they explored the present day issues or the colonization or the slavery or the other stuff that has impacted Africa greatly enough to be able to bring in another culture. So there was an imbalance. So there's an imbalance to me. There was an imbalance because the story that formed Namo is not the story that is forming Nuri. It just felt like this movie needed more time to be fleshed out. Like maybe this movie was rushed. Maybe this movie was rushed and storylines could have been a bit tighter. The storyline could have been a bit, the narrative could have been a bit, it just felt like the story wasn't mature. It felt like this was rushed to market and the storyline wasn't mature. The Wakanda 1 storyline is a very mature storyline, but this one doesn't seem like it was mature. Like, just missed the mark. It just missed the mark. Overall, not exciting to me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm sorry. Just didn't do it. It just didn't do it this time. At least for me, it just didn't do it.